What up, party people? What up, YouTube? Yeah, this is Chef, New Zealand Murder History Podcast. I'm coming to you from Picton. Check this out. We're going to go for a little drive. This is a drive with me special on location. Right here, we're by the shops, right? So, you got the supermarket just there to the left. I'm just driving past there right now. And there was a gas station to the right. Up here, there's a police station. Anyway, we're following the footsteps of one woman's last ever walk to the shops. Now, I'm not sure. She may have driven to the shops, but she didn't live very far away, so I'd say she probably walked. She lived in Scotland Street, which is, well, you'll find out shortly. Anyway, her name was Robin Grace. And unfortunately, she was murdered by her son and his wife. And the young couple were originally from Wellington City. So we're going to do a quick geography lesson. Right now, this is Picton, the town of Picton. This is where the ferry comes in. The ferry comes down from Wellington City to Picton, 3 or 4 times a day, I guess. And people come over on their car, come over on the boat on their cars and drive further south into the South Island. But the point is, the ferry stops here in Picton, so that's sort of what the town's built around. You know, there's a bit of what's it called? You know, there's a bit of money around because there's a bit of tourism coming through with the boats and all the freight and things like that. But anyway, we're going to just do a little U-turn here because I went the wrong way. Let's just go. How are we going to do this here? We'll have to turn around. But alright, maybe I can just go in here. Oh no, we'll spin around. But anyway, Picton to me has always been known just as the town where the boat goes in. And I've caught the boat many a time. And it's a reasonably nice town. Like, it's quite a good place when you're waiting for the boat, because you're going up north. You sort of spend a few hours in Picton, maybe get fish and chips or something like that. Look how cool this guy's giving way to me. Thanks, mate. Thank you. And, anyway, it's a good little town. It's not bad, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'd necessarily want to live here. It's probably a bit small for me, just one supermarket, but it sure ain't bad. Okay, so here's Scotland Street. I actually noticed it went back there as well, so it goes all the way back. But this is the first part of Scotland Street I saw, and this is where Robin Grace used to live, and this is where she got killed, here on Scotland Street. But as you can see, it's broken up into 3 sort of streets with a... Scotland Street, it gets divided into 3 sections there. See, and even there down that sign there says to Scotland Street, and then it has some special numbers, so that must be the very end of Scotland Street there. So her house could have been any of these ones. I'm not sure exactly. It doesn't say in the articles I've read which which house number she was, so I'll just spin her around a bit. And yeah, could have been any of these houses. Could have been on the left side of the street, right side of the street. Like I said, the other piece of Scotland Street back there, or around the corner there where the numbers continue down to the very end. I really don't know. But here we are, live from Scotland Street, Picton. Anyway, we'll read the scripted podcast then, with no further ado. Sometimes I make jokes on my show and that, but man, there's nothing funny about what happened to this lady. It's sad, I guess. What up, party people? What up, YouTube? Today's show will discuss oh, hang on, wait up. Sorry, let me just fast forward a minute. Cut. Alright, hang on, where are we? That was the end of another show there, but here we go. Chef, New Zealand Murder History Podcast. Today, we've got a scripted podcast about a murder of the worst kind. And what I mean by that is this nice lady, Robin Grace, was just trying to help her young son and his wife with a place to stay. And boom! The young couple decided to axe murder Robin Grace in her own house in Scotland Street, Picton, so where we are right now. And according to the articles I'm reading here, the young husband and wife murder team used the blunt end of the axe. But an axe murder is still an axe murder, no matter which way you try to swing it. No pun intended. I'm sorry, that was fucking terrible. My show's not suitable for children. Kids, click off. And anyone suffering from PTSD, also click off and seek support. And if you should so require, then contact your doctor or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. My show is just for educational purposes and not to cause offence to Robin Grace, the 43-year-old mother who would wind up being the victim in this case, or the young couple who killed her, as the Crown would allege they did in two separate and subsequent court cases. First, David Adrian Hull was tried and sentenced in the Blenheim High Court. His wife would be tried second, and I believe it was to make sure that her human rights to a fair trial were not in violation. That Janelle Amanda Hull was taken down to Christchurch and tried in the Christchurch High Court, but then she was taken back to Blenheim, where she would be sentenced to for the murder of Robin Grace. Okay, now let's reference this one. I read Radio New Zealand article, pair charged with woman's murder in Picton, written on the 14th of January 2013. And you can find this article on www.rnz.co.nz. I read stuff.co.nz article, Mother Killed in Picton, written by Anna Williams and Jared Nicole, on the 14th of January 2013. Now, this article was originally written for the Marlborough Express, but I found it on www.stuff.co.nz. I also read stuff.co.nz article, Hull Jailed for Murder, written on the 7th of November 2013 by Kat Duggan, and of course you can find that one on www.stuff.co.nz. I read New Zealand Herald article, Woman who helped kill her mother-in-law has jail sentence reduced. It doesn't say the date of the article or the name of the author, but the website's updated 2024. And you can find said article on www.nzherald.co.nz. I read another stuff.co.nz article, and this one's by David Clarkson. Woman admits killing mother-in-law with axe, written 2nd of May 2014, and that one's available on www.stuff.co.nz. We're actually going to read directly from this article a bit later in the show, so you can see what I'm on about. Okay, so let's do a quick geography lesson here for all my subscribers not from New Zealand, because I know I got a lot of American subscribers on my show. What up, USA? Anyway, here we are in Picton, right? So this is the very top of the South Island to the east. So think northeast of the South Island. And David Hull and Amanda Hull were a couple from Wellington. And Wellington is at the very bottom of the North Island. So, you know, they probably came over here on the boat, although they could have caught a plane to Blenheim, I suppose. I think there's an airport here in Picton, but it's not even like a commercial airport. I don't think you catch the plane here. You sort of catch it to Blenheim and then come here, or well, they would have caught the boat. Most likely they caught the boat. But anyway, So let's get to the point and tell the story already then. Well, I got to tell you, it's hard from the limited information available, but here goes. Once upon a time, in 2013, there lived a young married couple in Wellington City, capital of New Zealand. 19-year-old David Hull was living with his wife, 26-year-old Janelle Amanda Hull, in a motor camp out Porirua ways, so like half an hour drive north of Wellington City. And things weren't going well. David Hull had attacked a man on a walking trail just out of Porirua on January the 2nd, 2013. He just picked up a rock and smashed this guy in the back of the head without rhyme or reason, later saying to police that he wanted to hurt somebody, not necessarily kill them. With their problems quickly stacking up around them, the young couple decided to go to Picton for a fresh start and stay with David Hull's mum, Robin Grace. Now, I'm not really sure what David Hull's relationship with his mother, Robin Grace, was like. Like, was he estranged from his mother? Like, was she definitely... I mean, she definitely was his mother, but was she the woman who raised him? Did they get along? I just don't really know. I mean, was David Hull originally from Picton, and had he moved up to Wellington, or was he from Wellington but his mum always lived in Picton, for example? I don't have the answers to these questions. It's difficult, I'm going to be honest, doing these New Zealand shows sometimes, because I want to give you guys all the facts on that, but, they're few and far between. But, especially when it comes to the backstory of the killer and stuff like that, like, I just don't know too much about this bloke, other than what's in the articles that I've just been reading. But what I do know is that on the 5th of January 2013, David Hull and Janelle Amanda Hull, his wife, moved in with Robin Grace on a semi-temporary basis. Even giving the couple her own room to stay in, while she slept on the couch in the lounge. And it didn't go well. Like, not well at all. Not one bit. Fed up with the dysfunctional couple, Robin Grace asked them to leave. And let's get one thing straight here. Robin wasn't just going to throw them out on the street. She was going to help her son, David Hull, find suitable accommodation and make sure that, him and his wife were all good. But however, none of this would come to be. What happened next was like out of a horror movie. Now I'm going to read part of this article. Woman admits to killing mother-in-law with axe. Written by David Clarkson, 2nd of May 2014. And I got this one off stuff.co.nz, but I actually think the original article was first written for the press. So like the Christchurch Press, but it's now just called the Press. Anyway, you can find it on www.stuff.co.nz. And then I'll show you guys some pictures as well. I got a couple of photos to show you guys. In fact, maybe we'll do that first. Should we swap it around and we'll do it that way? Yeah, may as well. Then you can get a picture of who I'm talking about in this article. So... over here, this is David Hull's mother, Robin Grace. She's the lady who got killed with the axe. We've got Janelle Amanda Hull, David's wife, standing there in the dock in court. And then back. Oh shoot, where's the other picture I've got? Hang on. Oh, here it is. Fell off, I see. And then over here, this is her son, David Hull, who apparently always hated his mother, but I couldn't find out as to exactly why. Like, it may have just been some irrational hatred of his mother, I really don't know. I don't have any more information about that. But apparently he never liked her from the get-go, so... As to why he was staying with her, I guess, he was bullying her for accommodation that he needed for him and his wife. I'm just really not sure. Or maybe he was trying to make things right and it just got out of hand and... I mean, who knows? But anyway. Woman admits killing mother-in-law with axe. Robin Grace, found to have 35 wounds and injuries inflicted by the attack from her son and daughter-in-law. A 26-year-old woman stood impassive in the dock as the details of her part in the axe murder of her mother-in-law in Picton last year were described in the High Court in Christchurch. Janelle Amanda Hall pleaded guilty to a murder charge today, 6 months after her husband, David Adrian Hall, 20, was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole term of 15 years. Justice Graham Pankhurst Justice Graham Pankhurst remanded her in custody for sentencing on July 18th in the High Court in Blenheim. Behind bars, David Adrian Hall, 20, was sentenced to life imprisonment for his part in the murder of his mother. She will receive a 3 strikes warning for repeat violent offenders when she is sentenced. Hall pleaded guilty to the charge of murdering Robin Grace in Picton on January 13th last year. Crown prosecutor Kathy Bell said Grace was 43 at the time of her death. David Hall was her son. Murder planned. Janelle Amanda Hall took turns hitting her mother-in-law in the back of, with the back of an axe along with her husband in 2010. Is that right? 2010? I thought it was 2013. That's what it says in the article. Hang on, I had 2013 written down before. I thought it was 2013. Hang on, I'm going to... No, that is incorrect. I've been researching this case. It says it down here in the bottom. It corrected it. Yeah, so I don't know why it says 2010. There's a misprint in the article, Anyway, David Hall spoke to Picton police in an interview that he was recorded on a DVD. He talked about wanting to be a serial killer. Since then, he had been in regular contact with police, child, youth and family, and mental health agencies. Janelle and David Hall had lived in a holiday park in Porirua, but returned to Picton on January the 5th, 2013, and moved in with Grace until they found a place to live. See, it was 2013, so I don't know why they had that written up there before. It was a typo, but... Anyway, the relationship between the three became strained to such an extent that Grace slept in her car on the night of January 12th. She told the couple on January 13th that they must move out, and that she began looking for a place for them. When she went out, David Hall told his wife that he was going to kill his mother when she returned. The couple planned how they would kill her, either by strangulation using a rope or with an axe. They planned to dismember the body and burn parts on the house fire. David Hall got an axe from the carport, and the pair also had a rope, masking tape, and a note entitled Instructions, Revenge Plan. Far out, that's out of control. When Grace arrived, David Hall grabbed her, putting one hand over her mouth. She began struggling and kicking. We're just going to read this whole article because we've already got this far, you know what I mean? But, anyway. He tried to pick up the axe, but she broke away and made a break for the front door. The couple caught her at the door, where she was screaming for help. They pulled her back into the lounge, where she continued to struggle and scream. Neighbors heard the commotion and called police. David Hall and Grace fell to the floor. So David Hall and his mother, Robin Grace, fell to the floor. And he yelled to Janelle Hall, "Use the axe!" She picked up the axe and hit her mother-in-law several times with the back of the axe on her back and head. When Grace fell, she was dragged up to the bathroom, and Janelle Hall started cleaning up. When David Hall called her into the bathroom, they saw that Grace was still alive, and they took turns hitting her with the back of the axe head Until they were satisfied she was dead, they changed out of their bloody clothes and hid the axe under some items in the laundry. When police arrived, the couple said there were no problems. David Hull insisted on a search warrant, but an officer said he was invoking his powers under the Search and Surveillance Act. Police found Grace's body in the bathroom and arrested the pair, Bell said. I'm not sure who Bell is. Is that one of the cops that's being interviewed? Anyway, Grace was found to have 35 wounds and injuries. David Hull declined to be interviewed after his arrest, but Janelle Hull made a full statement that provided the basis for the summary of facts. And it says the press at the bottom of the article, and that's because it's, like I said, originally written for the Christchurch Press. So yeah, pretty gruesome stuff in that David Clarkson article. Horrific. But yeah, that's what happened. One day down Picton, a town where nothing ever happens. But anyway, so let's do just a quick recap of what's happened then. So the crime is on Scotland Street, Dunedin, where we are right now. It's January the 13th, and at 4 p.m, neighbours are calling 111 emergency with reports of a woman screaming. One cop responds to the call, uses the Search and Surveillance Act. So let's talk about that a bit. So the Search and Surveillance Act is something the police use to search a house, car, or dwelling without a police search warrant. And they're only able to do this if they have good reason to suspect a serious crime is taking place. So that's different, for example, from the Misuse of Drugs Act, which is like a when they do the same thing, but it's like a drug crime. Oh, I guess it's completely different actually, because this is a lot more full-on act to invoke, because you're searching someone's whole house because of a violent crime. But anyway, they're similar in that sense that they don't have a search warrant signed off by a judge. They can do it on the spot with good reason to suspect. Anyway. So the cop arrests Janelle and David Hull without incident. Calling for backup, he asked members of the public to make sure the couple didn't escape while he secured the crime scene. Janelle and David would both be sent to Christchurch for psych evaluations. David Hull would be tried first, pleading guilty at the Blenheim High Court on January the 13th, 2013. So Blenheim, from where we are now, is about... It's like less than 25 minutes drive south of here, you know what I mean? You sort of go southwest, I suppose, a bit inland maybe, and you get to the town of Blenheim. It's a bit bigger than Picton, you know? It's not that big, but it's bigger than Picton. Anyway. So Janelle Hull got sent to Christchurch, awaiting trial on remand at Christchurch Women's Prison. She would plead guilty at her own trial in the Christchurch High Court a little over a year later, 2nd of May 2014 it was. I think they must have decided to try Janelle Hull at the Christchurch High Court to make sure that she had a fair trial. You know, especially how the two defendants were ordered to stand two separate trials, with David Hull going up first in Blenheim High Court, you know. So they wanted to, you know, make sure that when she went up, that the jury weren't like people from Blenheim who already knew about the case because it had already been tried with her husband. You get what I mean anyway. But in the end, it wouldn't matter because Janelle pleaded guilty. But, you know, they had to play it that way as to not give her defense lawyer and legal team and that reasons to appeal the verdict and that. As it happens, Janelle Hull would appeal, but not the verdict. She would appeal her sentence at least. And she won, knocking some time off. And I don't feel good about the Court of Appeal. I don't feel good about this. I mean, the Court of Appeal up in Wellington, I mean, what are they doing, you know? But, you know, we'll circle back and talk about that soon. Yeah, David Hull, he got sentenced first. He got 15 years non-parole. Now, I feel the need to explain, because I know I've got viewers from the USA and other countries who are watching this show right now saying, well, that sentence is weak as fuck. Yeah, 15-year sentence is so weak for a bloke who literally axe-murdered his own mum. I mean, you're right. But let me just explain how it goes over here. Basically, a life sentence starts at 10 years in prison with no possibility of parole. Then, the judge may give extra time for aggravating factors in the crime. So, back in the day, people would be sentenced to like 10 years jail. And then, back in the day before that, we used to hang people too. But that's another story. But anyway, these days it's like a total lolly scramble what the courts are handing out. For example, 2014, Moha Fawcett got sentenced in the Christchurch High Court to 20 years prison with no parole for the murder of Christchurch sex worker Mallory Manning. Now that's like the longest non-parole sentence for murder I've ever heard of, handed down by the courts in New Zealand. Except for, there's one exception, that's Paul Wilson got 26 years, but that was because he committed his second murder, the murder of Nicole Tuxford, so that's why he got 26. But yeah, typically people get, it can be anything, it can be 10 years, 11 years, 15 years, Moha Fawcett got 20 years, but anyway, the Wellington Court of Appeal would later declare Fawcett's confession inadmissible in court, and he would be freed from prison. But again, that's another story. But what I'm saying is, the sentences can vary a lot. And yeah, I've also seen, recent cases as well where the killer gets 11, 12, 13 years non-parole. So 15 years is considered a good sentence by our own standards. But that's just the non-parole period. So, then after that, 15 years, David Hull can put in his application to go in front of the parole board, but it may or may not go well for him. Let's discuss a few cases in brief where the parole board uses its power to keep people locked up because they're deemed to be a menace to society, So you got Paul Daly. He's the first one to springs to mind, and he was a deviant Hutt Valley sex criminal who abducted, tortured and sex murdered 13-year-old Wellington schoolgirl Carla Cardno. So this bloke is pretty bad. Well, Paul Daly's been in prison since being jailed for the major crimes in 1990. So a long time. That's we're 2024 now, you know what I mean? That's 34 years ago. Yeah, he later on went on to say that he really enjoyed what he did to the Hutt Valley High School girls. So, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but he did say something like that. So, that's why they keep him locked up. But anyway, I always thought he was an outlier. He was our worst New Zealand criminal, etc. But, it turns out I was wrong because I read an article about New Zealand's worst murderers written by senior crime investigative journalist Anna Leask. And if you, the viewer watching the show right now, you want to learn more about the 47 really bad news people in this article, well, you can find it on www.nzherald.co.nz. Yeah, so these 47, almost exclusively men, they still get to apply for parole, and perhaps someday at least a few of these people might be released, but yeah, they're kept in there for really, really, really long periods of time. But as far as I know, the Christchurch mosque shooter is the only bloke who's declared, officially never to be released. So I hope you enjoyed my little history lesson on the New Zealand parole system. But yeah, that's something how it goes. Anyway, it's likely the parole board will keep David Hull locked up for a lot longer than the 15-year period. They'll take into account the motive for the murder, as well as the crime itself. So it will look bad that he done this murder basically just out of hatred and revenge. It was for the, slight of how dare his mum ask him and his wife to leave, even if they were being rude. So that was his motive for the murder, so that makes him really dangerous, I'm struggling to think of what a good reason there is to kill someone. I mean, there's not, but this guy's just, he's just very angry and vengeful, It wasn't It wasn't like he was trying to, I don't know. Yeah, it was just all bad. What else can you say? But anyway, the parole board has been known to release the occasional whack job to wreak havoc on society, every now and then. But every time someone with a life sentence is released and commits major crimes, well, they make policy changes and stuff like that. Like the time Paul Wilson, he sex murdered aspiring life coach Nicole Tuxford. That was the bloke I was talking about before with the 26-year sentence. Well, anyway, do you watching the show remember that one? I made an episode about it a while ago. And also the Kimberly Schroeder murder that he committed in the 1994, I think it was. Might have been 93 and tried in 94. Well, anyway, there was an inquest held into Nicole Tuxford's death. So that was the Christchurch murder in the 7th of April, 2018. And the inquest was also about the suicide of Gary Schroeder, who, for those of you who don't know, Gary Schroeder died in a suspected suicide a few days later after Nicole Tuxford was murdered. But he was the dad of Kimberly Schroeder, who Paul Wilson killed in 1994 over in Hokitika. But anyway, I hope that wasn't too confusing. But what I'm saying is, whenever stuff like that happens and they hold an inquest, to see who was negligent, within not just the parole board, but also, in this case, the New Zealand police were looked at. They were found to be all good by the Independent Police Conduct Authority, but I'm not sure what the inquest has found. It's quite hard to find information on the inquest. But they look into other government agencies too, all that, and that's when changes happen within the parole board and stuff, so, that's how it works. And then you've got other groups like the Sensible Sentencing Trust and stuff that, that they complain when the parole board lets people out too early, or when the sentences from the judges are weak. So they're another group, but they're a non-profit thing, and they're not really part of the government. I don't know much about the Sensible Sentencing Trust, but anyway. So I know we've gone a bit off topic there, but stay with me, party people. What I'm trying to make you think about is how all this stuff works. Well, at the same time, I'm teaching myself a thing or two as well, because, I don't know all this stuff backwards. I'm just researching this show. But it's interesting, Yeah, I actually tried to write a show about the Nicole Tuxford inquiry, Gary Schroeder inquiry, but it was too hard to I couldn't find what the outcome of said inquest was, so I kind of scrapped it. But anyway, get back to what happened to Janelle Hull, chef. We haven't got all day. Okay, well, basically, she done some time down in Christchurch Women's Prison, pleading guilty in the Christchurch High Court on the 2nd of May 2014 to the a 2013 murder of Robin Grace. From there, she gets taken back to the Blenheim High Court for sentencing. The judge gave her 13.5 years without the possibility of parole. So she ends up getting 18 months less than her husband David did. But it doesn't end there. According to this New Zealand Herald article, woman who helped kill her mother-in-law has jail sentence reduced, available on www.nzherald.co.nz. See, it actually doesn't say which journalist wrote this, and also the date it was written, but sometime after her sentencing, her lawyer took her case to the Wellington Court of Appeal and was able to get her sentence quashed and replaced with 12 years non-parole. So the courts of appeal say that because she has bipolar 1 with borderline traits, she gets a discount on her sentence. Okay, well, I'm not going to argue that point. I mean, she does have a mental health condition. I'm not trying to say she doesn't. But then listen to this shit. I'm quoting the article directly now. The Court of Appeal accepts Janelle Hull played a major role in the killing in subduing Mrs. Grace and striking blows that contributed to her death, but it found that she was less culpable than her husband, as David Hull had planned the murder. She was under his control, and he had played the major role in the killing. I find this shit really offensive, eh? It's like, I mean, in one finding, the Court of Appeal says David Hull played the major role, but then in the above paragraph, it says Janelle Hull played a major role in the killing. So it's like they're both playing major roles, you know what I mean? But, I mean, although I agree that without her husband, she wouldn't have murdered Robin Grace. But, you know, I also have to say that if she wasn't there that day, Robin Grace probably would have been able to fight her son and get away. I mean, she made it to the front door but got dragged back into the lounge. And she was only a 43-year-old woman. She wasn't like, as far as I know anyway, she wasn't like infirmed, you know. She would have been able to get away from him. But there was two of them she was up against, you know what I mean? Makes it much more difficult. I mean, imagine the look on Janelle Hull's face as she takes her best shot. Absolutely horrible. But anyway. Yeah, and then so the Court of Appeal quashes her sentence and replaces it with 12 years. Well, you know, it's just not good. But, you know, I do recognize that she was not the dominant one in the relationship. Like, I agree with some of the stuff they're saying. But, you know, as a New Zealander, I'm not okay with 12 years for her role in this murder. I mean, the more I think about it, well, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with Janelle Hull getting less time than her husband, David. But it's actually the original sentences that I'm getting racked up about more, you know. I mean, how about 25 years non-parole for David Hull? And Janelle Hull gets 4 years off for her mental health condition, so 21 years in total non-parole. I mean, that to me sounds reasonable. But, you know, I don't actually think the sentencing judge can even go that high under the current guidelines. But, you know, I'm no expert, just what I reckon. I'm all for rehabilitation, party people, but we should be about punishment too. But what do you lot think? I mean, are you cool with 12 years for this kind of carry on? Well, let me know down in the comment section. I think she's up for parole next year. Well, I guess that's all I had to say about the Picton axe murder. Yeah, what do you think about that? It's pretty heavy. It's hardcore. Signing off. This is Chef, New Zealand Murder History Podcast. Thanks for watching this on location Drive With Me special. Scotland Street, Picton.